costs. When we talk about costs, we're talking about the money that must be paid for factors of production. That means we have factors of production, which are resources that helps in the production of goods and services. So we have to pay for these things. We don't have them. They are scarce resources, right? Why do we call them scarce resources? We call them scarce resources because we have to pay to get them. They are not free. They are economic resources. So whatever we have to spend on those things to be able to produce goods or services are called costs. So costs are the amount of money we spend in the cost of producing a good or a service. Mm-hmm. Clear? Yeah. So I said factors of production already because as a business, you need factors of production. Without factors of production, you can't even produce. So we need land, labor, capital, and enterprise. They have to be on process before we can have our output, which are goods or services. Clear? Mm-hmm. So then we have what we call the time periods. So whatever we do as a business, there's always a specific time we do it. So it's going to be short or long. So that's what we call time period. So I go to time period. This explains the time frame in which firms operate. So firms can either operate on the short term or the long term. So what is the short run about business running? So for the short run, we are talking about the period that at least one of the factors of production that we're talking about is fixed. That period, we cannot change one factor because it's a short period. So we call it the short run. So the difference between the short run and the long run is that in the short run, one factor of production is fixed in supply. But in the long run, all factors of production are variable. Because in the long run, you can make this house to become a school in the long run. But you can't quickly change this house to a school right now. Mm-hmm. Do you get it? That is what a short run is. Do you understand the difference between a short run and the long run? Okay. So that means in the short run, one factor is fixed. In the long run, all the factors of production are variable. Clear? Clear, please. So we'll go to the overview of cost. Cost can be explicit or implicit. So for explicit, we're talking about the amount we incurred because we have to pay for something. The amount we incurred for paying for something, that is explicit. Then implicit is not monetary value. It is abstract. The cost, the money you lost because you took an action. Do you get it? It's called opportunity cost. So opportunity cost is the next best alternative that is forgone. The cost of the next best alternative forgone is opportunity cost. That is what we call implicit. Do you understand the difference between implicit and explicit here? Mm-hmm. Explicit is the real cost, the amount you pay for buying something, explicit. But implicit, we are talking about the decision you took that make you to not have the opportunity to enjoy the next best alternative. There's A and B. You choose A. You paid for A. That is explicit. You didn't buy B, so you did not enjoy B. Whatever you lost in B is the cost of the next alternative that is forgone. Mm-hmm. Is it clear? Yeah. So go to types of cost. For types of cost, we have fixed, variable, and total. So for fixed costs, these are the costs that does not change as level of output changes. At zero, you incur this cost. Example is rent or salary that you have to pay, or advertisement or insurance. Mm-hmm. They are fixed. Just like insurance in my car for a whole year. So I use the car, I don't use the car, it has to run for the whole year. That is fixed. Is it clear? So this is how a fixed cost looks like. This is fixed. It is constant. No matter what happens with the quantity, it is constant. Then we have variable cost. Why do we call it variable? We call it variable cost because this cost changes as level of output changes. So from 0 to 1, the output changes, the variable cost starts increasing. So as your output increases, your variable cost increases. That is why we call it variable cost. Example is raw materials, wages, electricity. The more you use them, the more you consume them, the more you pay for them. That is variable. So it starts from 0 forward. Fixed cost, you have to pay, with either you produce or not. But variable cost, you start from 0 upward. It increases as level of output increases. This is variable cost. It starts increases. As level of output increases, it starts increasing. Is it clear? And we have total cost. For total cost, we're talking about the combination of the fixed and the variable cost. So you're combining them. So combining them means TC equals to FC plus VC. Are you with me? Mm-hmm. So these costs are combination, and this is it. So you have it here, total cost. TC. Fixed is there. You combine this and this to get this. So this minus this gives you this. Do you get it? This minus this gives you this.
Yeah, okay.
Clear? So these are all about cost. And the last thing we need to talk about is a company's short down point in the short run. So whatever you do as a business, you are expecting to make, it is expected of a business or a firm to increase, to make profit, right? Before you make profit, you would have talked about making revenue. Yes or no? Revenue is your total, your price multiplied by the quantity sold. So you might start a business and don't make profit. It doesn't mean that the business is failing. What you have to check is your short down point in the short run. And the short down point in the short run is when you are unable to meet up with your variable cost, then you can short down. You can consider shorting down in the short run. If your variable cost, because the variable costs are the cost that increases as the level of output increases, right? So if you cannot pay, if you cannot cover up for your variable cost, then what's the point of doing the business? The fixed cost is there. In the long run, or when you expand, you can still spread your fixed cost on all operations. But the variable cost, you are buying, you use 5 raw materials. You use 5 raw materials. You should be able to sell the 5 raw materials or cover up for the cost of 5 raw materials. If you cannot, then there's no point selling. So you should consider shorting down in the short run if you are unable to cover up for your variable cost, not fixed cost. Because fixed